What is up, everybody? MMA Fighting's Alexander K. Lee here. I am in front of the Rogers Arena in Vancouver, British Columbia for the show coming up this Saturday. I have a special guest for all of you today. You know, in Abu Dhabi last week, we had PT Carroll and the crew there, and there was some massive numbers on YouTube. But I think a lot of that also had to do with the guest we had on our weigh-in stream, the Mac Life's own Oscar Willis. Look at this man. What's up, Oscar?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks so much for lying like that. That's really nice of you. I appreciate it.
People show Oscar your love. He needs it. He's a he's a beloved man, but he needs a lot of positive enforcement.
Yeah,
now,
for sure.
Oscar, it's so good that you're here because we've got a heck of a card this weekend. The main event, you know, everyone knows what's going on. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Justin Gaethje, one of the most exciting matchups that you can possibly make. I do want to get your prediction later, but the first thing I really want to know is, do you think that this is going to have a kind of a fast, explosive finish, or are we going to see something going to the championship rounds and just have like an automatic fight of the year contender?
No, I absolutely think we're going to get a fast and explosive finish. I think we're going to get a fast and explosive fight. I think these two, I mean, we know how Justin Gaethje fights. He comes out faster than that train that's just going over us, and he comes out ready to fight. And as Cerrone said earlier this week, he's going to match fire with fire. I think we're going to get something very akin to the Cerrone-Ferguson fight where Gaethje's going to come out, and for every blow he lands, Cerrone's going to try and land one right back. So yeah, I think for the first 5 minutes, it's going to be carnage. If it goes past that, it's just going to carry on.
Should there be concerns about Cerrone, you know, being a slow starter? Being a slow starter against someone like Gaethje just seems insane. It seems like you better be able to match him right away. But it's worked for Cerrone in a lot of his fights. Could it work here? Well,
the whole Cerrone's a slow starter, I think, at one point in time was very justified. But then, you know, I remember his performance against Robbie Lawler, who actually flew out the gates at him, and he did well there. And against Tony, similar sort of thing. I think that Cerrone, he seems to be a little bit in the past now. I mean, obviously people talk about his performance against Dos Anjos, but I think maybe he mentally lost that fight in the change rooms as opposed to just the pressure. I think Cerrone's changed a little bit. He's a bit more mature. He's Dad Cerrone, even if he has lost the beard. I think he'll be able to cope with it this time.
Yes, Dad Cerrone. Dad Cerrone, 3-1 in the UFC. You're right, he's changed a lot. I mean, we said maybe not a slow starter anymore. He went back up to welterweight for a bit. That kind of seemed to rejuvenate him or bring something new, fresh out of him. Then he had a child, and that seemed to rejuvenate him. Now he's in Canada, where he's unbeaten. I've said this many times. 4-0 in Canada. Could be going 5-0 on Saturday. I don't know. What is your prediction? Does Canadian Cowboy remain undefeated?
It's a tough one, man, because while I just made up a whole segment about how he can survive the pressure, Justin Gaethje brings a whole new sort of pressure. So I do think Gaethje's been speaking a lot about how he's got his old crazy style, but he's just sort of honed it. He's picking his shots a little bit more carefully. His output's gone down. And I think that'll be the difference maker, to be honest. He's made a bit of mention that Cerrone's never been knocked out. I think we could actually see Gaethje getting that.
Either way, we know the fight is going to be awesome. You guys who are lucky to be there live, you'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. Huh? No? What?
It's a co-main, right?
Okay, so anyway, the co-main event, light heavyweight battle between perennial contender and one-time title challenger Glover Teixeira and Nikita Krylov, who's in his second run with the UFC. One of the most exciting fighters at 205 pounds, 31 pro bouts, never gone to a decision. Teixeira himself, a pretty active fight finisher. How do you see them matching up? Do you think Krylov's going to come out aggressive?
I think it's going to be a fun one. Listen, when I think about this fight, I think about the state of 205 in general. You know, the light heavyweight division sort of really struggling to find the next guy. I think we've got Corey Anderson and Johnny Walker next. With this one, it's sort of, I feel like it's Glover's last chance at being in the top tier of that division. So I think he knows that. I think he's going to go into the fight. There's that train again. I think he's going to go into the fight feeling like he has to get something out of it. And I think we are going to see some good action. I think it's going to be maybe start off a little bit more tentative, certainly more so than the main event. But I do think we'll get a finish.
Yeah, Teixeira, you know, again, I talk about how exciting Krylov is. Teixeira has the most submissions in UFC light heavyweight history. He has the most, he's tied with John Jones, and also tied for the most finishes, also with John Jones in UFC light heavyweight.
John Jones guy sounds all right. He sounds great.
He's okay.
Yeah.
Teixeira was pretty high on him, though he did say during the week that he thought Nurmagomedov maybe has passed him as the best pound-for-pound fighter. But looking at the matchup, though, as far as what it means for their careers, Teixeira's been in the top 10, top 5 almost forever. What does he have to gain from beating Krylov? I asked him this. I want to get your opinion because Krylov, for me, it seems like has a lot more to gain, obviously, from taking Teixeira.
Right. Well, thanks for asking my opinion. I appreciate that.
Okay, of course.
But I think really what Glover has to gain is a win. You know, like I said, he's really Glover Teixeira, a little bit peek behind the curtain this week. His views haven't been the most amazing, even though he's still a well-known name. I think Glover really needs to start getting some more wins, get that just to keep himself a bit relevant in that division, because sooner or later he's going to be considered the old guard. He had his shot, and now it's behind him. So for Glover, I think it's very important to get a win here and get a statement win.
Yes, he is the old guard. But you know what? Age is nothing but a number. Teixeira, 39 years young. He's been as good as ever. He's coming off back-to-back submission wins. So I think that's a great co-main event. Also on the main card, we've got Michelle Pereira and Tristan Connolly. You've got Uriah Hall and Antonio Carlos Jr., classic striker versus grappler matchup. You've got the return of Todd Duffy, 4 years, blue chip heavyweight prospect once upon a time. Who knows what he's going to look like now? He's facing former LFA heavyweight champion Jeff Hughes, Misha Serkinov, and Jimmy Crute in the light heavyweight opener. So, Oscar, of all those that I've laid before you, what are you kind of looking forward to?
Well, I appreciate it when you lay anything before me. But looking at this spread, I'm interested in Todd Duffy. He's been a very outspoken person this week. He's criticised the media, which is fine. I actually quite enjoy it. I think anytime you speak to a fighter who has a strong opinion about most things, it's always more exciting to listen to than anything else. So he's criticised us. So I'm curious to see this sort of energy, this rejuvenated, opinionated energy that he's got. I want to see how that translates into the cage. I've heard of Jimmy Crute. He's a good guy. He's not here to fornicate with arachnids. And I'm interested to see him. Dana White just did one of his Instagram if you don't know now, you know segments, and he specifically mentioned him. So he's obviously pretty high on him. And I'd like to see a new blood guy at 205. And then obviously you mentioned Michelle. I'm sorry, taking all these names from you. But you mentioned Michelle Pereira. I like flippy stuff. So that's cool.
Yeah, who doesn't? Pereira, it's tough. He's going in against a grinder. Connolly, again, I know there's not a lot known about him, but from what I've heard, he is a bit of a grinder, and from what I've seen. So maybe that's a style to beat Pereira. Unfortunately, I think he'll be giving up something like 20-something pounds maybe when they step into the cage. So that might be something to look out for. But for fans of Pereira, it can also be a good thing. He might be off the ground, off the cage, in the air, doing all kinds of stuff he did against Danny Roberts.
Do you think he trains like Cirque du Soleil? Is that...
I think it's required. I think to do the stuff if he's doing that stuff without a Cirque du Soleil certification, I think that's a huge problem.
And I think we have to cut him.
I think we need to look into that because he did some wild stuff. That Danny Roberts fight, anyone hasn't seen it, definitely go check it out. We didn't, by the way, and Todd Duffy, it was almost like you guys were having a one-on-one conversation. This video, please check out the scrum on MMA Fighting's YouTube.
I did very well.
And he was almost going one-on-one, a tete-a-tete, verbally with Mr. Todd Duffy. So very entertaining. Todd Duffy versus Oscar Willis and the rest of the media.
No, not versus. We were just having a good conversation.
We were having a conversation.
I think it was cool.
Exactly. Yeah, very, very interesting thoughts from Mr. Todd Duffy, who again competes this Saturday. And the one thing we kind of glossed over: Uriah Hall and Antonio Carlos Jr., two guys who are kind of always on the cusp of contendership. Two specialists: Uriah Hall, one of the most exciting strikers; Antonio Carlos Jr., one of the best grapplers in the sport. Who do you think takes that one?
Shoeface. I think so.
All the way? You think he just gets him down and that's it? It's a wrap for Hall?
Well, listen, Uriah Hall, everyone says it's kind of like a 50-50 guy. You never know which one you're going to get. He was another one this week who had a few things to say about the media.
Yeah.
Which, again, I respect. I think maybe we could always hear the criticism and do stuff with it. But for me, just when you get Antonio Carlos Jr., when he gets a hold of you, it's usually a wrap. And I think his grappling makes more of a difference than Uriah's striking.
Okay, yeah, that's the way these things tend to go. Uriah has never really been controlled on the ground, but he's definitely had problems with people kind of clinching him up, frustrating him, not letting him get into that kind of free-flowing style he enjoys. I could easily see it going this way on Saturday as well. Now, we'll talk a little bit just about preliminary action, some names coming back. Luis Smoka, he's in his second run with the UFC. He's at 135 pounds now. He was a flyweight before. It sometimes looked like a contender, sometimes not. How do you like his chances now? He's facing Ryan McDonald, also a guy who's hungry for his first win.
Yeah, man, I like Luis Smoka. He's been around. He's a veteran of the game. Mm-hmm. I can see him doing well. I think he will. He came in, the weight cut looks like he did okay. Yeah, I fancy his chances as well.
Yeah, also Chad Skelly, another name who's kind of competing after a while. We haven't seen him since last November. Bit of a controversial loss to Bobby Moffitt, so we'll see him in action as well against native psycho Jordan Griffin. So one to look forward to just for that nickname. Otherwise, Oscar, what other storylines? Anything that's jumping out of this? Whether things that could happen as a result of who wins or stuff going in that we might have just kind of not mentioned yet?
Well, listen, this is far from a one-fight card, but we would be telling a little bit of a porky pie if we didn't say that this is all about Cerrone versus Gaethje. The lightweight division is always the craziest division. There's always some mad stuff going on. We'll try and assume that it's Tony versus Khabib next, in which case, hey, you got Gaethje, Cerrone, whoever comes out of this. Conor McGregor's always lurking. Man, just to see what happens next in that lightweight division is so fascinating because now that there's only one champion, I just feel like we could finally be getting the 155-pound weight class on the straight and narrow. And then if you look at that, the amount of crazy matchups in there, Gaethje, Ferguson, Cerrone, McGregor, Khabib, Poirier still there. It's all about the main event for me.
So you heard from the man himself. Look, there's almost no way we as fans or in the media can lose. It's a great matchup on Saturday. Whoever wins, hopefully it just keeps the lightweight division rolling along as opposed to creating some other weird roadblock. Fingers crossed.
Nothing like staying positive.
I'm the most positive person around. I am positive that people will not be disappointed by the main event on Saturday. Right? That's pretty good, right?
That's
Yeah,
good.
I thought so.
I'll take it.
So don't forget to tune in. It's all on ESPN Plus this Saturday, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Main card 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And Oscar, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
If you guys want more Oscar, where can they go?
Go to themaclife.com for all your MMA needs.
And you can follow us on MMA Fighting and our YouTube page, MMA Fighting SBN on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and enjoy the weekend's show.